Right at this very second, there is a massive, relentless war raging. And no, it's not fought on physical borders. It's an active, invisible battle happening right inside you, literally between your immune system and billions of microscopic invaders that we can't even see. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're not just going to sit here and memorize some dry list of human diseases, right? We're going to decode the exact tactics of these pathogens. Because look, when you understand the why and the how behind this warfare, you don't just memorize facts for your exams, you actually master the biology of survival. To really master this topic, we need to logically categorize our enemies into 4 distinct boxes. First, the bacterial battalion. Second, the viral hijackers. Third, parasites and their free taxis. And finally, the body's internal rebellion. Let's dive right into our first enemy category, the bacterial battalion, starting with their fundamental biological structure. So, bacteria are what we call ancient, boundaryless, prokaryotic organisms. What does that mean? Well, their DNA just floats freely inside the cell without any clear nucleus holding it in. They might seem basic, but they are incredibly capable of causing absolute havoc. I mean, the most notorious among them is Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which launches a direct, devastating assault right on our lungs. Now, you might naturally be wondering, why does treating tuberculosis require such a long, strictly supervised treatment plan? You know, the one called DOTs, Directly Observed Treatment Short Course. Why not just pop a normal course of pills at home and call it a day? Well, the crucial point here is this crazy wax-like shield. TB bacteria build a highly resistant, waxy layer inside the lungs that is literally so tough, normal medicines struggle to penetrate it. Because of this, treatment takes a grueling 6 months or more. And here's the kicker. If a patient feels a bit better and just abandons the medicine early, the surviving bacteria mutate into the deadly multi-drug-resistant TB, or MDR-TB. This is exactly why health workers have to directly observe patients taking their meds. Oh, and it's also why newborns receive the BCG vaccine as a preemptive defense mechanism. Moving away from airborne threats and into contaminated food and water, we meet bacteria like the intestine-attacking Salmonella typhi. This bug elegantly illustrates the science behind the Weidel test for typhoid. Here's how it works. When this bacteria enters, our immune system creates very specific antibodies. In a lab setting, when a patient's blood serum is mixed with the bacteria's antigen, these antibodies actually grab onto the bacteria and clump together. This clumping process, known as agglutination, is exactly what confirms a positive typhoid diagnosis. It's like a biological dragnet.
Next up is tetanus, caused by Clostridium tetani. I want you to think of this invader, which usually sneaks in through wounds from soil or rusty iron, like rust jamming the gears of your very own nervous system. It produces a neurotoxin that completely, totally blocks the signals telling your muscles to relax. The result? No way to relax. The jaw locks up entirely, causing constant, agonizing muscle spasms. That, my friends, is exactly why a quick TT injection post-injury or the childhood DPT vaccine is your ultimate shield.
To wrap up the bacterial battalion, we have pneumonia, caused by Streptococcus pneumoniae. This one goes straight for the alveoli, those delicate little gas exchange sacs in our lungs. Instead of filling with air, these sacs fill up with fluid or pus, dangerously halting the exchange of oxygen and dropping oxygen levels in the body fast. It's a severe threat for sure, but thankfully one we effectively neutralize in kids using the PCV vaccine. All right, moving on to section 2, the viral hijackers. These are the truly stealthy invaders of the biological world. You see, outside the body, viruses are basically just dead particles. But once inside, they completely take over. Take HIV, for example. It brilliantly breaks the central rules of biology. Normal biology dictates DNA makes RNA. But HIV, it's a retrovirus. It actually carries RNA and uses a special enzyme called reverse transcriptase to convert its RNA backward into DNA. It then merges this DNA with ours, completely tricking our body into manufacturing more of the virus. Even worse, it selectively assassinates our immune system's VIP security guards, the T lymphocytes. Without those guards, the body falls prey to opportunistic infections, which is exactly why treatments like ART, antiretroviral therapy, target this exact reverse process to save lives. Consider dengue next, brought to us by the Aedes aegypti mosquito. It's famous for causing a rapid, dangerous drop in blood platelets. But here is a truly fascinating question. If it's just a blood platelet issue, what actually causes that excruciating, bone-breaking pain patients always describe? Well, the pain isn't directly from the low platelets at all. It's actually from our own immune system totally overreacting. It unleashes this flood of chemicals, causing what we call a cytokine storm, creating immense inflammation all around the muscles and joints. This extreme swelling brutally crushes the nerves, creating a sensation so painful it literally feels like the bones are breaking.
Now for polio, a disease that paralyzes the nervous system and which, incredibly, India triumphantly eradicated back in 2014, exams frequently test the vital difference between its two vaccines. First, you've got OPV, created by Sabin. This uses a live but weakened virus given via oral drops to build a strong defensive wall right in the gut. Then there's IPV, created by Salk. This one uses a completely dead virus given via injection to build antibodies directly in the blood. They are two absolutely ingenious but totally different biological strategies.
Finally, in our viral category, we have rabies. Once symptoms like hydrophobia, that intense fear of water, appear, it is sadly 100% fatal. But why? Because the lyssavirus stealthily travels through the nerves, bypassing the bloodstream entirely. This is a sneaky process called retrograde axonal transport. It just creeps right up the nervous system straight into the brain tissue. By the time symptoms actually show up, the brain is already compromised, meaning immediate vaccination right after an animal bite is your absolute only shield. No exceptions.
Okay, let's jump into Section 3, parasites and their vectors. Basically, the free biological taxis of the disease world. Unlike bacteria or viruses, these larger parasites strictly rely on insect vectors to get around. Think of them as free biological Uber drivers. Matching the exact disease to its specific taxi is a massive, high-yield trap for competitive exams, so listen up. Mixing up your mosquitoes and flies is where most students lose easy points. Malaria hitches a ride with the female Anopheles mosquito. Kala azar uses the sandfly. And elephantiasis, that relies on the Culex mosquito. Keep those straight. Take malaria's specific attack pattern, for example. The Plasmodium parasite first multiplies in the liver and then invades our red blood cells. When it bursts those red blood cells open all at once, it releases a toxic chemical called hemozoin. This specific chemical is exactly what triggers those severe shivering chills and spiking fevers malaria patients suffer from. It's a brutal cycle, one we historically learned to halt using quinine, an incredible compound extracted directly from the bark of the cinchona tree. Notice how this vector strategy plays out with other parasites too. While the Kala-Azar parasite delivered by the sandfly directly attacks and destroys our bone marrow, which are literally our blood-making factories, the elephantiasis worm takes a totally different route. It completely jams up our lymphatic drainage system. Fluids simply can't drain back from the tissues, causing massive abnormal swelling, usually in the legs. This is exactly why governments run mass drug administrations, giving preventative pills to whole populations to permanently eliminate these worms and break that transmission chain for good.
And that brings us to Section 4, the body's internal rebellion, where we analyze our very own genetic malfunctions. So we're shifting the narrative away from external invaders now, looking at what happens when our very own internal blueprints glitch. Usually, our cellular blueprints are incredibly precise, carrying exactly 46 chromosomes. But in Down syndrome, a biological division error called non-disjunction happens. This results in an individual having 47 total chromosomes instead of 46, specifically because of an extra copy at the 21st pair, which is known as trisomy 21. It's wild to think about. Just one tiny microscopic addition profoundly alters an individual's entire physical and mental development. And this genetic angle perfectly explains hemophilia, historically known as the royal disease, where blood just fails to clot. It's an X-linked recessive genetic disorder. Now, because females have two X chromosomes, if one has a mutated gene, the other acts as a safe, healthy backup. This means females usually just act as protected carriers. Males, however, are XY. They completely lack that backup X chromosome, so if they inherit the mutated X, they suffer directly from the disease, which logically explains why males are so much more vulnerable to this condition. Finally, let's examine a super widespread, non-communicable disease, diabetes mellitus. Deep inside our pancreas, specific beta cells produce a hormone called insulin. I want you to picture insulin functioning exactly like a biological key. When you eat, your blood sugar naturally rises. Insulin then turns the lock, opening up our cells so that glucose can enter and actually provide the energy we need to survive. This key analogy brilliantly highlights the core difference between the two main types of diabetes. Type 1 is a literal autoimmune internal rebellion. The body's own immune system destroys the beta cell factories, meaning Absolutely no keys are produced. These patients have to inject insulin. Type 2, on the other hand, is the condition of insulin resistance. The keys are still being manufactured, sure, but the cellular locks have simply become resistant and completely ignore them, leaving sugar dangerously trapped right there in the bloodstream. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative thought. How can a single microscopic error in our DNA or a confused immune system cause such profound warfare within our own bodies? Isn't it awe-inspiring yet honestly kind of terrifying how incredibly complex and fragile our internal systems truly are? I mean, one single extra chromosome or one single misdirected immune cell can change absolutely everything about how we survive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and whatever you do, never stop decoding the fascinating biology within you.